Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Hedlund.
Well, we're back. Once again, the dynamic duo. The handsome, sought-after bachelor, Mr. Robert Mayor Hedlund, and the loudmouth, whatever negative words we could use to describe my act. They're plenty.
Boob, was that the
Boob.
word?
But you still have that loudmouth boob Jim adding foolish commentary. His conduct is truly not funny and denigrates an otherwise well-intended program. What's that when the word is spelled the same backwards and frontwards? Boob? I'm a boob. Palindrome. Thank you, Jeff, Mr. Prince Alfred. All right, Mr. Mayor, welcome back. Again, we are on the cusp of St. Patrick's Day, but we see a Finnish flag displayed here, and I'm curious. We know about my Irish-American heritage. We know about your Finnish heritage. What's the significance of that flag in the cup?
Well, you guys, what's your big celebration if you're an Irish-American?
Saturdays. No. Oh, St. Patrick's Day, of course, March 17th.
Well, as fate would have it, a Finnish holiday falls on St. Patrick's Day too.
Oh, son of a gun.
And it's known as St. Urho's Day. U-H-R-O. And Jeff, you can put a graphic up of St. Urho.
Awesome.
I won't get into the history of it, but supposedly he had something to do with like driving locusts out.
Of Finland.
And the Finns, which easily can outdrink the Irish.
The gauntlet has been thrown down.
Well, statistics will bear that out.
All right. Congratulations.
And unfortunately, Finland has a higher alcoholism rate, and the Nordic, they tend to hold their liquor a little better than the Irish.
All the pieces of the puzzle are coming together.
It's also an excuse for the Finns to partake in celebration of that holiday, which happens to fall on the same day as St. Patrick's Day.
Well, I'll see you March 17th. We'll look forward to having a beverage. Well, that sounds awesome. You listen, you learn here at the Home of the Hits. This is awesome. That's a great fun fact.
I believe it's actually celebrated more amongst Finns in the upper Midwest than actually in Finland. I think it's an Irish, a Finnish-American thing.
And you know that's been said about St. Patrick's Day for quite some time. It's not a big holiday in Ireland from what I understand, but a lot of Americans have taken the ball and run with it.
Correct.
Interesting, it's also interesting
including us in Weymouth with our halfway point to St. Patrick's Day, the Irish-American Heritage Parade. Now let's get to the question.
That family fundraiser is really an appealing event, I know, every year for some benefit more than others, from what I understand.
You should get on the board of directors of the parade.
Yeah, I want, maybe I could make a big check for that event as well. A lot of folks have made a lot of money on that from what I understand. Robert, before we carry on with urban, you referenced the
St. Urho.
But the Finnish story is not so dissimilar from Ireland. St. Patrick's famous for driving the snakes from Ireland, as opposed to, and I was just watching this thing not so long ago on fairy tales. That Little Red Riding Tale has been told, and Cinderella is told different ways by like 50 different cultures historically. So everybody seems to come to the same place somehow, some way.
All right, Paul Reed's watching, so let's go.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Mayor. A lot of work is going on at the shelf these days. Am I the only one who wonders if a car is going to fly off the road heading down the hill from Regatta Road? A Thelma and Louise moment, perhaps? I would have thought that there would be a bigger barrier to falling onto West Augusta Beach. I don't know if I understand that. I would have thought that there would be a bigger barrier to falling onto West Augusta Beach. Also, are there plans on the town's website to check out what it will look like when it's done? I hope it's my good buddy, Billy Smith. Bill Smith wrote this in. So, Robert, I'm not...
I hope Bill Smith doesn't go up Great Hill with you.
I know, I've never had that problem.
You guys might drive over Great Hill and continue on and then go right over the shelf.
Before you comment on this, that work on the shelf looks awesome, and all the work that's being done on the beach looks absolutely phenomenal. You can take the ball from there, Robert. That work's long overdue, if I'm not mistaken.
Again, I think last show we talked about the bridge over the Herring Run. We are going to also do development update. People that watch this show but don't check out Development Update, you're missing out because it's really informative, much more serious because we don't involve Jim in the production of Development Update. But we are gonna update, and it'll air in April. We will update that project also. It's going pretty good. The contract has been great.
Excellent.
was going to mention one little slip up they had. They nicked someone's house with an excavator, but that's another story.
Hey, when that happens.
But no, it's been going great. I don't know about the barrier situation. I've been up there a few times since the work started. I think I know what he's talking about. To the left, where the old stairs were for the shelf, it's all barren now, but I'll check it out.
All right, interesting. And that work should be done, a projection on the finish line?
Well, they got to shut down most of the work for the summer months and pick up next year, so it would be done completed for the beach season in '26.
Mary, this is your old neck of the woods. Have you considered a Thelma and Louise moment for you, your exit from this planet? Mary, okay, don't go driving with Mary on Regatta Road would probably be the advice we can offer everybody here this afternoon. And ask the mayor.
Mary is spending a lot of time on Regatta Road suddenly.
Do tell, Mayor. Any comments on that? My co-host, my fill-in, my better half, my replacement. Hi, Mayor. When will the pavers be back to finish the work on Washington Street along the Cemetery and BJ stretch? It's got to be the worst patch job in town. On the positive side, it does slow the speeding cars. Don't send those speeding cars up to Regatta Road.
Great question. I have to travel that stretch a lot. I don't know if it's the worst patch job. The worst patch job is where you happen to be traveling at that given moment. In your opinion, where was the worst patch? Hold on. Where was the worst patch job in the history of Weymouth in your lifetime, Jim?
I'd say the biggest issue to date remains that stretch of Union Street off of past Hamilton Street going down to the base. That road is, I lose an axle.
Because it's your neighborhood.
Well,
if you lived on the
well
Washington
said. Yeah,
Street
well said.
neighborhood, it
Yeah,
would be the
yeah,
Washington.
well said.
In answer to Melanie's great question.
Melanie, I should have married her.
That was a project that involved new water mains. And there is work on Washington up to towards Main Street, which I think is just getting completed. The problem with that is a state road. There is cooperation with our DPW. And I just got yesterday our paving schedule for this year. Obviously, that's not on it because we're not paving it.
Okay.
But off the top of my head, I don't know specifically when that work is done, but I think shortly after the utility work is completed, it'll probably get repaved. So I'm assuming, based on where I believe the utility work to be, that it would be this year.
Excellent. All right. So good news, but like you said, it's out of your control. It's a third party that's responsible for that.
That's not a paving contract going out through the town. That's going to be done either combination of state and the utility that ripped up the road.
Cut.
Is that mine? This is why we get along. You guys all set? Then, Robert, I did want to insert in a comment I've made in the past. I think if your Citizens Advocate gets a chance to insert editorially, I think the biggest curse that you have regarding the paved roads is the great work that you've done on so many roads throughout the street. And as you said, when you drive down your road and then you go into North Weymouth in particular, it seems like every road's been repaved. It looks like a million. You feel like you're in a different town, and then you say, hey, man, would I like this to be coming in on my street?
Quick note on paving, just something that I discovered yesterday. So we got our Chapter 90 road funding amount from the state yesterday through an email, not the actual check yet. So traditionally, prior to my administration, this town was doing 1.2 to 1.5 million a year in paving, which is why if you go back in time 10 years ago, the roads were in atrocious condition in this town, horrible. Right. It's one of the things that kind of motivated me to run for mayor. I was like, why are we driving around like this?
Great big issue.
So the fiscal management through Ted Langell in this town, and the way we budgeted and the way we've undertaken our capital program without having to ask for an override to pave streets like some other towns do, has allowed us to up that amount where we've been doing about $8 million annually in paving and getting caught up. And one thing I've found is the more paving we do and people see a road getting paved, then it triggers them and they say, well, why isn't my road getting paved?
No doubt.
But what they don't understand is, your road might not have under the way things were run before, you might not have seen your road pay for 25 years.
Or ever.
Now you're going to see it in maybe 8 years.
Yeah, sure.
So it's accelerating everyone's ability to get caught up. The problem we have this year is we're under our most difficult budget year. The assistance from the state generally on, for instance, education aid isn't where it should be. And we've got to shift more funds over to the school. More on that later. We should do a school funding development update because there's a lot of miscommunication out there on that. But we are not going to be able to hit that $8 million figure this year for the first time, and I'm a little disappointed in that. Okay. We have to pull that back a little bit. I don't know the final number yet, but one bit of good news is the traditional number we get from the state is up slightly on our Chapter 90 money. And it's based on road miles, it's based on population. And we have accepted more unaccepted private roadways in this town since I became mayor. So we've added to our aggregate number of road miles, which upped our Chapter 90 figure. So we've gone from about 1.2 something. We're now up to, I think, 1.65 was the number I saw yesterday. But that isn't going to make up for the amount we're pulling back on the town's contribution. So think about it. Last year, for instance, I'll round it up, 1.4 million from the state. We did 8 million. So do the math on that, right? Sure. So what, about 6.5 million is coming from our town revenues and not from the state.
Right, which is unprecedented historically, as you're making clear. Another citizen advocate insertion, Robert, we certainly take plenty of shots at you during the course of the show, but the road paving is certainly something that you deserve to be praised on. It's definitely significant, and it's noticeable, and what a difference it makes.
It's still my biggest headache, fielding calls. What about my road? What about my road? What about my road?
Coming soon.
A friend of yours.
Coming soon.
A friend of yours called me about his road. He's at the end of a dead-end cul-de-sac, and I looked it up, and it's a private way. It's an unaccepted roadway. I can't use state funds, and we're trying to accept those roadways so I can legally kind of take them on, and we've been doing that, as I just mentioned. He didn't like my answer, and he delved into looking at state law and trying to come up with some angle to convince me that I'm wrong.
I got a lot of jerk
I'll out him later to you.
All right, Robert.
Who do you know that you're tight with, without naming his name, that lives at the end of a cul-de-sac that's in rotten condition?
Does his last name resemble an insect in any way?
A what?
An insect? Ant-Man?
No.
Oh, all right. Not our St. Patrick's Day leader.
No.
All right, Robert, then we're going to
Someone who's hawking a lot of shirts lately.
Oh,
Next question.
Okay. All right, Robert, not a purposeful segue, but as you just referenced all your budget challenges, dear Mr. Mayor, there have been quite a few federal budget cuts in recent weeks, as I think we all know. I'm most worried about our veterans and our elderly. If the federal government is failing our citizens, are there ways for our community to help pick up the slack? Thank you, from Beverly D. Does that federal, all those cuts we're hearing about, does that trickle down your way?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know yet.
All right, good answer.
I know what she knows from reading the papers thus far.
Yeah.
I do know that, I have mixed opinions on things, obviously. I don't want to see cuts that are going to impact our ability to deliver services at the local level.
Of course.
I do know that the federal government can't keep adding to the national debt to the tune of $2 trillion every year. Or we're all going to be broke and there'll be no services. So, we got to get our financial house in order in this country. They have to do it. I think that wasteful spending should be cut out at the federal level, and this seems like a serious attempt, I hope, to do that. But I don't know of any specific impacts yet. I don't, again, know what I read. She mentioned veterans. One of the things that I've looked into a little bit is the potential, and that's going to wind up in the courts right now, but Department of Education, right? It was created in 79, 80. We functioned for 200 years plus without it. I don't see a direct benefit, let me put it this way, I don't see an impact to Weymouth if they simply eliminated the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., and whatever federal funding we get from the Department of Ed continued to flow to the states directly without that funneling through that bureaucracy. I think that would be a good thing, because we've got a state Department of Education. We can make decisions at the local level, I think, better. And as years have gone on and on and on, we get more mandates from the federal government, more mandates from the state. But I think, having that control locally is always better, or even at the state level is better, as long as the flow of money continues uninterrupted. We don't need a bureaucracy coming up with mandates out of Washington telling us how to educate kids.
Sure.
So as long as it doesn't result in a loss of whatever federal funding there is, I know there's contributions for school lunch programs, things like that. If that could continue, that's a great example of cutting out some waste. So we'll see how it shakes out. I can't give her an example of where we've been impacted yet. I can say that we've been, this is going to be our worst budget year in 10 years here, okay?
Wow.
Definitely. We're in the midst of that now. Ted is really having a hard time. We're in better condition and situation than communities around us, okay? We're working right now to finalize a school budget, working with the school department. We're going to have a lot of information going out on that. We're in way better condition than every single town around us, including Hingham, including Cohasset, who are wealthier communities. And that's impacted by a cut happening at the state level. Our Chapter 70 money is not keeping pace with teacher salaries, inflation, fuel costs. We got to make that difference up.
Sure.
And that's why it's impacting every town around us. We're going to do a lot of information on that.
Bob, you've mentioned Ted on more than one occasion. Let's all take a moment and all hail the great Ted Langell. I know he does a lot of...
Unsung hero of this town.
Works a lot of magic with the numbers, and I know you've commented before on his great work. We want to remind everybody these questions have been great, and we appreciate everybody writing in. Please continue to send the questions to askmayorbob@gmail.com. askmayorbob@gmail.com. Clearly, he's prepared to answer everything that comes his way. Robert, or dear Mayor, is there a plan for the North Weymouth Library branch? If the town is not going to ever open it again, maybe sell it and build maybe 2 house lots. Thank you, from Stanley Grant. I know you've talked about the library before.
Yes.
Any thoughts on what's going on there these days?
Given lots of updates on this, and the update is not much of an update. There's a little update. So when we undertook, I'll go back and do a little bit longer answer on this. When we looked at getting the funding for the new library, we learned that we had, well, I knew prior to that actually, from the Mass Library Board of Commissioners, we had more libraries in Weymouth per capita than any community except Barnstable and Springfield.
You're kidding me. That's a great, E equals MC squared. That's why we're all so smart.
That's why we're all so literate in Weymouth, right? As you can tell from the way some of these questions are written. But it was not economically feasible to keep 4 libraries open and build a new flagship library. So going into the process, that was part of the plan. They were going to close 2 libraries that don't get any use. We've asked the WETC crew, who uses the basement at the Pratt Library, how many people were using that library a week before we closed it? Could you give us a rough number? Less than 10?
Oh, wow, no kidding.
So,
how many employees were there, 12?
So less than 10 people used it a week, but when we closed it, 100 people complained. But anyway, that was the plan. That was the plan. Those libraries were not getting the use. I know people have an attachment to it. You grew up there, you read books there.
Cool, exactly.
It's sad, I get it.
They're cute.
But the trade-off was well worth it, okay?
No doubt.
And the new library creates a bigger staffing issue because it's bigger, it has more services. That was the plan. Everybody agreed to it. We met with the community. The community said, we don't want housing there.
Oh, no kidding.
The North Weymouth Civic Association, the residents. So we put an RFP out. That was the plan. We got no response from anyone that wanted to buy it. We kind of had a vision of what kind of businesses would work there.
Surprising.
Professional office, a dentist, something that's not going to generate a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Nothing happened. We put an RFP out for a lease. We only got 2 responses.
Shocking.
One we're meeting with, it either happened, I wasn't in the meeting, it was with legal. We have one user that's an existing Weymouth business, doesn't generate a lot of traffic, would be a great tenant. They're looking at it. There is a meeting scheduled. There's a second operator that had a small daycare type operation, but it financially is not working for him. So those were the only 2. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on the other user because
who knows?
They're in the process right now of discussing it, but they're an existing Weymouth business, low impact. I think the neighbors would love that particular use. So more on that, and we'll throw that out there if we ever sign a lease on it.
Well, so it's ongoing and it's still in the hopper.
And people have suggested, well, why don't you move this department there, that department there? Yeah. So we just did an overall assessment on town office space needs. And obviously with the creation of Chapman, it created a domino effect on the use of our schools. And administration has left the administration building and moved into the old Abigail Adams School. So we moved some town departments into their old school headquarters administration building, which is convenient for us. So some of the departments that had been over at McCulloch are now nearby town hall.
Oh, great.
So we don't have a need. We looked at it. The only other building that's coming into the mix for potential use is we have and this goes back to Beverly's question, we actually do have something that could be impacted by what's happening in DC. We have an earmark for, I think, $1 million to upgrade and rehabilitate the old VFW on Broad Street.
You've talked about that in the past, too.
Yeah, so that's in the works. We're waiting for some final congressional work on that. So I think that is ahead of whatever is going on between Trump and Congress. So we do expect that to come in. There's a slight possibility it could be impacted, I don't know. But eventually that will be the Veterans Service Office will relocate to that building where they can sort of run it. Upstairs will be the Military Museum for the town of Weymouth, where we'll consolidate all of our military history and archives and artifacts. And that way they can kind of keep an eye on that at the same time and welcome visitors. And some of the staffing will be done by members of the Veterans Council. So that's the only other public building that there's going to be a big change on soon.
All good stuff. All good stuff moving forward. Again, please keep the questions coming to askmayorbob@gmail.com. Robert, same train, same track. Hi, Mayor. Have you heard of any development plans for the old Honda lot at Washington and Front Street? I drive by that spot every day and can't believe that developer hasn't snapped that up. It says Mark Holden, but Mark Holden played for the Montreal Canadiens, grew up 3 doors down here on Academy Avenue. In all seriousness, a couple years older than me in high school. I wonder if it's that Mark.
Aren't you friends with his brother?
I don't know any Holdens aside from Mark Holden.
Never mind.
All right. Off camera. All right. Robert, so there's actually, the construction has started on that lot, hasn't it? Oh, I know they knocked the building down.
You see construction vehicles there because I think the contractor that is doing the utility work on Washington Street, which we got a question on earlier, leaves their equipment there and stages there. That's why you think there's activity there when there isn't. As far as that site, we have talked about it in the past. Aldi was coming in. That seemed to be welcomed by the community. They bailed after a change in their upper management, and they scaled back expansion plans. There's been other iterations. We chased one fast food operator away that came in with a crazy plan that you would like their food, but you wouldn't like their traffic plan. Okay.
Chick-fil-A?
No, it wasn't Chick-fil-A. It was. I'm forgetting which one it was now.
Sonic?
Which one was it?
Sonic.
Don't say it.
No big deal.
Why not?
But
What was it? I already said it on the air before. Huh?
Was it Popeyes?
No, Popeyes wanted to go in the middle of Columbian Square.
Tell me it's an Arby's. I will help subsidize an Arby's.
You're worried about Columbian Square. They wanted to plop a Popeyes drive-through in the middle of Columbian Square. And they bought the building before they sought the permit. The guy has like 400 of them. He lives down in New Jersey. He didn't even come up and look at it. He just bought it and said, it was crazy. We sat at this table and we said, show us how the traffic's going to go. And the guy's like, well, we're going to go. They're consulting. And I go, does that work? And finally the guy goes, no, not really.
Well, touche.
It was one of the more interesting meetings that I've ever had here.
Wow.
So they still own the bank building, the Hingham Institution building. They own it.
Oh, no
and they wanted to put a Popeyes there.
That's what they wanted, the Popeyes.
But how do you get in and out of that site? If you're driving south towards Abington and you want to buy some chicken wings, how are you going to get in there?
With great difficulty.
And then how do you get back to go to Abington or anyway, whatever.
What are you trying to say about Abington?
Water under the bridge. I forget which fast food operator looked at this site. But yes, I have an update.
Okay.
Someone has put the property since our last taping under agreement.
Oh, wow.
And they are looking at a sort of a, for lack of a better word, I'd say a little small kind of strip mall type thing, where you'd have a bank branch and a coffee shop and a whatever. And I think the site includes a daycare. And that's been the problem right now that, and again, it's not final, it's subject to, you know, further discussions with the town, so I don't mind talking about it in conceptual form. But planning department is struggling on how you would site a daycare center and implement safety concerns with kids getting dropped off the way the site's laid out.
Okay.
So they're talking now.
Okay, excellent. We're being told, Bob, that we are close to the conclusion of another exciting episode of Ask the Mayor. I think we're going to try to squeeze one more in just because it's the theme of, you know, what's going on with all these lots. And Robert, very quickly, you have spoken to this in the past, but if you could give us an update on, hello, Mr. Mayor, what has happened to the proposal for the BJ's gas station at Route 53, on 53? Has the company had any meetings with the town about moving forward? I know a couple guys that live near this place, and they are 100% against it. That's from Chris Pinot. And Robert, any updates as far as that road project?
No update. Since the last couple meetings, they've gone kind of quiet. So I don't know where that thing stands. Get another one.
So, we can do another one? Well,
and by the way, the concerns are legit on how the vehicles would exit that. The problem we have is it's zoned for a gas station. It had been a gas station. Sure. But yeah, no, we don't agree with kind of the way that would exit, and they got to tweak their.
Bob, can you, this is an editorial insertion on my end, can you just speak quickly to Ezekiel from Broad Street and Pope Tower? I noticed there's new signs in the East Weymouth parking lot. What is that about, and does the town own that lot?
Yes.
Okay.
I know that's confusing. I didn't know who owned it when I became mayor. That particular lot, yeah, it's a municipal lot. The reason for the signage, police department put the signage up. This is an interesting question. It's a great question. The reason for that sign there.
This is in Lower Jackson Square, the lot
Yeah.
behind the retirement board office?
Near Ted's transmission.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
So we had an issue in North Weymouth at the infamous West Augusta lot, which has gotten a lot of publicity. Right now, things are kind of on hold at the West Augusta lot because we're going to do some improvements there when the beach connection project's done.
Okay.
But they're using it as staging for that construction, so things are on hold with the West Augusta lot. We had a constituent who decided they would just leave a boat there and store their boat on the town lot. The police wanted it removed. The neighbors didn't like it there. They complained. The woman did a little of her homework and said, well, there is a town bylaw about leaving a vehicle unattended in a town lot, but there was no signage. And she fought the police department on that issue, and legally she was right because there was nothing posted. So the police department went out in response and posted all of the lots.
Okay.
And then once the thing was posted, they removed her boat or removed it prior to the sign, whatever. But that's what sparked that. Police department put the signs up and allows them to now enforce if someone decides. We had a guy living in a camper in that lot. We had all kinds of stuff which the neighbors were not happy about.
I support that.
That's the reason for the sign. So now they can, there was a bylaw on the books, but it wasn't posted. So now it's posted and they can enforce the town, ordinance, not bylaw.
Okay. Well, I think that wraps it up and concludes another episode of Ask the Mayor. Robert, thank you for all your great answers. Thank you, everybody, for all the great questions. And I guess we want to remind everybody, in lieu of our move on Hingham, stay tuned for F Troop.
Can we play the Finnish national anthem to close this out? All right.
See you on St. Umpa's Day. Urho.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.